Hey everyone, this is my summary for my converter and viewer for FBX files. So I'll start out with my converter. So you can see here that the parameters that I chose to include with my program are the name of the model, the FBX file that you want to convert is required, and then I have an optional main texture.tga and then an optional alternative texture.tga, and they're order dependent. So the first one you submit is the main texture, and the second one's the alternative. So you can only have a main if you only have one texture. Um, so I have 5 models set up here. So you call model converter, and then I have my models in a separate folder. Um, so they're all in this separate folder. So that's what I'm calling. I'm just giving it the location of that. So I'll run this to show you that they convert. Actually, before, so I currently have my package files in here. That's the name that I chose, .pkg. So I will delete those and then show you that this file. So that's running on the 4 files that I specified. One file I'm not showing, and I didn't delete in the other folder because it takes a really long time, like a couple minutes, based on the performance of how I'm doing my vertices right now. So while that's running, those files will show up as they're created in the models folder. So we can see that the Astro Boy binary.package just generated. And should be done soon. Yeah, almost done. Okay. So now that those have all generated, we can view them with our viewer. So I've created batch files that basically just feed into modelviewer.exe, which is generated in PA4, the astrobay binary.package. So I've created those package files and I'm referencing them in all these batch files, so I just have to double click. And here I have Astro Boy, and I'm automatically looking at the center of him. I have 2 instances just for this demo, but I think normally I would just have one. I didn't really. And then here I can toggle on the bounding spheres that are calculated in the converter, not in this. And then I have multiple cameras, so I can zoom around and I can zoom in and out, and switch over to the other camera, zoom in, zoom out. So it's the same thing for the others as well. Multiple cameras, just makes a couple instances of the buggy. Here's Warbear. So the other models, this is one of the only models that has multiple textures. So this is where my main texture, alternate texture, comes into. And if I press that, then it's showing the alternate texture. I just pressed the 3 button on the keyboard. So I can show you, that it has that, the bounding sphere, still multiple cameras, zoom in, zoom out, whatever you want to do. Okay, and then here's the T-Rex. Here's the bounding sphere, pretty big. And here's the frigate, and this is the best model to show off the fact that I can change shaders, zoom around, you can kind of see the different effects that I have. So there's that. And what else can I show you? And just for completeness sake, I will show you my solution for PA3. So here's my converter where it comes in, triangulates, sorts diverts. It's very similar to how it was given. Originally I had the texture, I'd read it from the file, but I found that wasn't working, so I just have the user input where the texture's at if they want to include it in the texture. The texture is included in the buffer. So I basically, in my converter, I read in the relevant files that are put in through the command prompt or through the arguments, argv, and then I create these buffers. I've created these kind of helper buffer files to help format buffers so that I can write them out to a file. So I create like the model buffer, has all the verts and tries in it, and a header for that. I put it in a chunk, and then I put each texture in its own chunk. So I create a main texture chunk, and it has its own. I just kind of read the file in and then write it to a buffer and then write it out. And then same for the alternative. And here's the package header. So I create a package and then I write out. And then here I determine, I add to the header, the total size and number of chunks. But if I just have a switch that says like, if I found a main texture and everything's working correctly, like I read it in, then I'll write it out. Same with alternative texture. And then, yep, I just write that out. And then on the viewer side, so I read and eat. So I use the eat functionality, which I would like to do this better because I feel like I could read everything in the file and then be done with it. But I'm looking for specific things that I've labeled in the converter. So like I know verts and tries, and chunk type verts tries is my model with verts with my vertices and tries that I make. And then I load the chunk buffer, which I eat creates a buffer from the file, and then I throw that into an FBX model and create it directly from there, which is the file you see that's loaded. I create a couple different lighting formats, which I kind of showed you on the spaceship, and then here's where I, if I find that there's a main texture, then I create it and I add it to a new graphics object, and then if not, I have not initialized, which I'll show you that. So if I go to converter, actually I've got to go. So if I go to the command line, so I want to, let's say, convert the space frigate. So that would be model slash space. Yep, space frigate.fbx. And I won't include the texture afterwards, and that's okay. So now this is going to run, but I didn't tell it where the texture is, so it's just going to run the FBX. And maybe you want just the FBX. But as you'll see when we go to view that, as soon as it's done converting. So it's done. So that, is here. Space forget.package. Go to the viewer. Click on space forget, referencing the same models path. And so now we have the default texture, and that would be the same thing for everybody. And there's it with lighting. So then I load the additional, I create the models, and I create the wireframe objects, and I load them into a separate tree on my game object manager. It takes in, a bounding sphere instead of just a regular, so that's just kind of a overload I did to add, and then it adds into a separate tree. That's how I'm able to toggle them on and off. And then I created 2 cameras so I can circle around the 2 different game objects, and I have a lot of things. So I can swap the shaders so you can view lighting or no lighting, toggle bounding spheres. You can swap the textures. I showed you that on the bear. And then swap the cameras for the different people, and everything cleans itself up. So unload game object, camera, delete the textures, and delete all the globals I'm currently using that I need to fix. So yeah, okay, thanks.